Welcome back, my friend, to another episode on As It Relates to Podcasting. This episode is part 2 of my 4-part series about LinkedIn with my friend Rich Perry. And today in this episode, we are talking specifically about building your brand on LinkedIn. We're talking about authenticity, we're talking about trust, and we're talking about creating meaningful connections. Now, in this episode, Rich and I are diving deep into the world of personal branding on LinkedIn, and we're also unveiling powerful strategies to help you elevate your brand presence. We're going to talk about building that authentic brand persona that resonates deeply with your audience and showcases your unique value proposition. We are talking about the importance of building trust and how it forms the foundation for meaningful connections on LinkedIn, as well as on other social media platforms, other marketing platforms as well. I can go on and on and on about the juicy goodness that is packed in this episode, but I promise you, you will come out of this conversation knowing exactly how to position yourself, position your brand, and position yourself in the market to be that go-to person that you want your customers and target audience to be seeing you as and positioning you as. Before we get into our conversation, I want to introduce to you my friend Rich. He is a business communication and marketing strategist, and he helps you build the brand your customers will trust. Entrepreneurs who have an important message to share hire Rich when they want to design an optimized and powerful strategy to reach their audience, to build their brand authority, and to turn casual visitors into lifelong customers. Now, he's co-authored a couple of books, one of them being Bankroll Your Mind, which is an international #1 bestseller. And he also writes for Entrepreneur as well as other online publications. Are you ready to get into all things personal brand, all things showing up authentically, and all things resonating deeply with your target audience? If you said yes to any of those, let's get into our conversation today. Thanks for being here. Rich, welcome back to part 2 of our 4-part series. Thank you so much for joining me for this one.
Love it. Let's go, Simona. Thank you.
I know, I'm really excited. I'm like thinking about how we left off our last episode, a little bit on a cliffhanger, I have to say, because we were kind of dancing around this idea of like personal brand and building your brand and communication and two-way communication and all these amazing things and things that I think that need to be brought to light, especially when it comes to using and leveraging a platform like LinkedIn. I want to just pass you the mic, and I want you to talk a little bit about how we start to build that personal brand on LinkedIn and some of the strategies maybe that you've found that are really effective over the last little bit, especially just to kind of stay relevant, you know?
Sure. Absolutely. So one of the things that I really, really, really like about LinkedIn is it gives you the opportunity to really brag about yourself. Okay. So if this is not a comparison, I need to draw out some similarities in order to explain myself better. Okay. So if you go onto like a Facebook or an Instagram, okay, a Twitter, something along those lines, like it gives you that little area to talk about your bio, you know, who it is you serve, but there's a character count. Okay. And yes, you can upload all of your content, and, you know, Facebook gives you a nice little area to talk about your work experience. However, it doesn't allow you to go into the granular details that LinkedIn allows you to do. Okay.
Right.
So even in your work experience on LinkedIn, it gives you that big area for you to really talk about your results and your skills in that area. Something else that it also gives you the opportunity to do is upload media to showcase your skills, to really show what it is that you do, as opposed to simply telling them about what it is that you do. So think about work projects that you've created, or maybe newsletters that you've done, or videos that you've done, or publications, places where you've been published. Okay. You can upload links to all of those things or podcasts in that work experience. Okay. So now you're creating this very colorful area in your work experience section that is attractive to the reader. Okay. So if I hand you my resume, it's words, right? And you can have that same image on LinkedIn, but the thing that LinkedIn allows you to do is upload media to separate all that text, all those
Mm,
words, okay? And we are visual creatures, so we're drawn in. Now, if I see, so and so is a podcast host and, in the summary area talks about how what it is that you do on the podcast, and then I see pictures, okay, tagged in there, multiple. Okay. And I know that those links, those icons go to the actual podcast episode. Now I'm hooked because I know that this person is a podcaster and they're
mm,
giving me the option to go right to some of those podcast episodes that are attractive to me. So that's something that I really like about LinkedIn. And it really allows you to establish and build your thought leadership because you're not just saying what you do, but you're showing them what it is that you do and giving them the opportunity to experience it themselves from
mm,
your LinkedIn profile. And that's all building your brand. It's building your thought leadership. It's separating who you are, differentiating you from everybody else who says, "Oh, this is what I do." Right?
mm,
Because there's a lot of podcasters out there. There's a lot of marketers out there that are a lot of life coaches or business coaches. But if I go to your profile and it not only do you explain what you do, but you're showing me and allowing me to experience it myself, well,
mm,
now you've differentiated yourself from everybody else that
mm.
didn't do that.
That's so, so, so key. I think all of this is really important for people to understand because I think that there's so much power in what you're saying here because, you know, you're right. When you look at other platforms and when you look at something like LinkedIn or Facebook, even, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it is, you literally have 140 characters, give or take, to get across who exactly you are, what you're all about, and what you help people with. When you have a platform like LinkedIn, you get to actually describe what it is that you do. You get to tag your title or whatever
Mhm.
with all of the different things that that you are, if you will. And so I just think that this is a really cool perspective to look at this through because I think that when you're looking to develop a personal brand, I think a lot of the times we look at we look at our social media presence and see what our social media presence is, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, but not realizing that you can also develop a personal brand for the professional side of your business as well that can lend itself directly into what it is that you're creating on all these other platforms. So, and we're going to talk about content creation in our next episode, but maybe just like really high level, is it when you're talking about creating a personal brand on LinkedIn, is it best practice to keep those conversations more on the professional side, more on the business side, more on like the I want to say like not even just like personal development, but also like business development side.
I think it's important. Okay, first off, I encourage you, the listener, to be authentic. Okay. Now, as you're being authentic and as you're being real, I'm encouraging you to share more than just a cold personality, a cold business
Mm,
personality. Okay. I'm encouraging you to share bits about yourself to really show who you are and again build that relationship. I'm going to keep going
right.
back to the R word, relationships, multiple times throughout our series. Now, I also want you to be mindful that it is a professional platform. Okay. So maybe you're not going to share the TMI or the diary that you put on Facebook, or maybe that you shouldn't even be putting on social media to begin with. Right. There's a lot of people out there
Like,
that,
okay, delete that post. I'm
right,
just kidding.
share a lot of things that maybe there should have been a filter on, or maybe not
Yeah.
everyone wants to read that. Okay. If you go into that line of thinking, that mindset of I'm going to be professional. However,
Mm,
I'm also going to share bits about my personality that flatter who I am and that really speak to what I'm about and building those quality personal relationships that are great for business opportunities. I mean, there are times when I share things that aren't necessarily business related or service related, but they speak to who I am as an individual and as a leader. And I feel that those things will attract the right people to me. I think if you
mm,
go in there with that mindset, being professional yet also being personable, I think you'll be successful in your LinkedIn activity.
I like this piece about being personable because I think this lends itself really beautifully to positioning yourself as that thought leader, as that expert in your space, as the go to person when it comes to talking about customer service or podcasting or marketing. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to build that relationship and you have to have that relationship piece in order to position yourself and extend your personal brand through to being that thought leader in that space and that's someone that people actually want to learn from and talk to and feel that you're trustworthy, right? Like your personal brand and what you do in your personal brand, especially on LinkedIn, really adds to your own credibility. And it adds to, and this is what I'm hearing you say, like it adds to your own credibility. It adds to your own trustworthiness, which is really important in business, right? If you're going to do business with someone, you want to be able to trust them and you want
Absolutely.
to trust that they're going to have your best interests at heart all the time, right? Even if you're speaking on a stage, for example, you know, are you actually credible in that topic that you want to speak about? Right? Like that's really important too, because I think it's so easy to say, like, yeah, I speak about X, Y, and Z. But if your brand is not reflective of that, and if what you're posting on LinkedIn doesn't relate to that, people are going to be like, okay, but what do you talk about? You know?
Absolutely. And you said it wonderfully. First point, I love what you said about building trust. That's actually one of the things that I talk about a lot. If you go
Mm,
onto my social platforms, it says be the one they trust on my cover image
love
because
that.
I encourage people to be the one other people are going to trust. And to your other point, you can be a talented best star in your niche, your industry, but if you are a jerk, who's going to want to do business with you? Like you could be the most
Exactly.
talented person on the field, right? But if you're not a team player, if no one wants to play with you, then you're not going to be successful in that sport. And the same thing in business.
Mm,
You can be the most talented, skilled person in your industry, in your field. But if you just crap on people and you treat people like
mm-hmm.
dirt, who the heck's going to want to do business with you? Who's going to trust you? Who's going to want to embark on that relationship journey and invest in you if you're going to treat them like dirt? Or if you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have their best interests in mind.
And I think that comes down to how you respond to comments as well. You know what I mean? Like people take time to comment on your posts, to engage with your content, to, chat with you through your messages or whatever. But if you're like, and I mean, this is the thing, what you were saying in the beginning of this episode that's really important to always keep in mind too, is this authenticity piece. Like, of course, you want to always remain authentic to who you are as a human being. That said, part of that and building relationships and building a personal brand is being approachable and is to being able to have a conversation with someone and respond with empathy or understanding or actual just genuine care, like caring. You know what I mean? And I think that those are how the best online relationships are formed, business relationships, because if you're just constantly short and curt and like whatever, because you can still be that, but you can also still be kind in doing that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's no different than the relationships that you cultivate in real life. If you're
Exactly.
a butthead in real life, you're probably going to be a butthead in the digital world, right?
That's right.
No one wants to be friends with buttheads. Like the same way that you treat people in real life when you go to a networking event or a conference or Podfest or anything like that, right? Do the same things in the digital world. Okay. If
Mm,
you smile, if you when you meet somebody, if you smile, shake their hand and introduce yourself, do the digital versions of that when you meet them on LinkedIn and everywhere else.
I
Okay.
love that.
If you when you're at a networking event or a podfest or whatever, like when you and I met, right?
Yeah.
We had a genuine conversation. It wasn't me or you hawking services and just trying to be shady characters. It was like two people just having a casual conversation. We probably had drinks in our hands. There were probably other people. Hey, what do you do? Where are you from? Blah, 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 this and that. And you and I connected and we started chatting on Clubhouse and here and there and everywhere, right? It was a genuine relationship. Do the same thing
Exactly.
in the digital world, folks. It's
Exactly.
the same way you make friends in real life, make friends the same way in the digital world. And then if
Exactly.
business happens because of it, hey, that's icing on the cake because that's why you're there, right? To help each other grow.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's the thing too. And I mean, this is how approach business. I've always approached business like this. Buy my services or don't. It doesn't make a difference to me. And I don't say that with any ego. I genuinely say with everyone has the perfect fit for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be in integrity with your own values every single day, whether you're online, whether you're meeting someone in person or whatever. There's so many people that do. I'm a podcast producer, right? So there's so many people who produce podcasts. When someone signs up to work with you, they're not working with you because of the work yes, they are working with you because of the work that you do, but they're signing up with you because of who you are as a human being. You know what I mean? Like you're exchanging energy in that way. And I can tell you, I would say like 100% of my clients, we work together because we're a personality fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you need to have that piece that shows and translates on all of your content, but also especially on LinkedIn, because especially like we were talking about in our first episode, you have random people who reach out to you who really have no idea who you are. And showing up authentically, like for myself, like, I mean, I've worked with our friend Johnny
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and he helped me the very first time. This is a side note, tangent, caveat story. The first like month that we worked together, we dove so deeply in understanding what my own core values were in life and business and whatever. I've realized through working for him, kindness, care, connection. Those are my 3 top values in life, in business, relationships, romantic relationships, personal, like everything. It doesn't matter. If it's not met with kindness, care, and connection, I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel the same way when I approach, business or conversations in the DMs or messages from people, sending a voice note or whatever it is. Those core values are an extension of me and then eventually embed into what your personal brand is. So regardless of what your company brand is, your personal brand should always align to the values of who you are as a human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Amazing.
you're absolutely correct. They should be in alignment.
I love that. I love that. So I want to ask you a little bit here too, because, okay, so now we've talked about establishing your profile. We've talked about the key things that you need. We've talked about networking and being open-minded and being, excited to talk to people, being authentic, having those conversations. The next piece I want to talk about here is using LinkedIn. Before we dive into the whole content side in episode 3 and episode 4 of the series, I want to talk about the importance of all of those elements. So your profile, showing up with your, in integrity with your personal brand, talking about the stuff that you want to talk about online on LinkedIn. How does that impact people potentially finding you as a podcast guest or pitching yourself as a podcast guest or as a host? Yeah, finding different guests on there. So the 2 sides, finding a guest and being a guest.
So as far as being found, you have a wonderful opportunity and I know, as you said, Simona, we're going to go deeper into it in the next episodes, but by you sharing information, okay, by you commenting on other people's posts, by you engaging with other people, by you sharing original content, or even just sharing content that resonates with you and then adding your own insights when you repost it, okay, establishing your own thought leadership. As people are engaging with you and you're engaging with other people, people can find you because LinkedIn will say so and so is a connection to so and so, and they just commented on a post that you might be interested in. Well, that's an opportunity for you to be found by that podcaster that's looking for someone in that space. Oh, so and so is a connection to so and so. They commented. Let me see what this person's talking about. Oh, they're talking about this, and I am a podcaster of this. I might want to reach out to this person to see if they'd be interested, right? Also, as we were talking about before, when they go to your profile, right, you hook them with the content that you shared, they go to your profile, and now they're able to see your expertise at work, and then they would be more inclined to ask you if you would want to be a guest on their podcast. Now, to your second question is, how do you find those podcasters? LinkedIn has that search tool. And not only does it have a search tool, it has a lot of filters up in the top. So if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, real quick, if you go into the uppermost area, okay, there's going to be a search box. There's also going to be a tab that says filters. Now, if you go into the filters area, you can start filtering people out by region, by job title, by interests, by the hashtags, like the things that they talk about. Okay.
Interesting.
There are ways of finding those people in that specific industry. And then, after you've filtered out everything, you press, I don't know, apply or submit, whatever the thing is, and then LinkedIn will send you all those results. Hey, we found 100 people that fit the criteria that you're looking for. Now it's your opportunity as podcast host or podcast producer to start reaching out to these people, going to their profile, and either, if you have a premium account, you can start sending messages without a connection request. If you don't have a premium account, you'll probably have to start engaging with them somehow. Okay, whether it's commenting on their posts or sending that initial connection request to then open up those doors of communication. But
Yeah.
that is how you're going to find guests, and that is how you're going to be found by podcasters.
Okay, that's really cool. I really like this. I like that. I like this a lot because I know that on the producer side of this, when we receive pitches and stuff like that from people, a lot of the times people will send their LinkedIn profiles. And I didn't realize this. Like, I didn't realize that you could search things through keywords. I didn't realize that you could have, like, I didn't know that all of those things existed, to be honest with you. And sometimes what I'll do is when we'll look at what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we'll look at someone's LinkedIn and all their social media and stuff like that. They may not have a huge presence on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, but they do have a decent, presence and following on LinkedIn. But the one piece where I wonder a little bit about is, how do you know if someone's engagement is good on LinkedIn? Because I feel like sometimes it's just easy, you could have 1,500 followers, 2,000 followers, whatever it is, but maybe you're only getting like 2 likes on a post. Like, does that equal good engagement? Or like, how do you know if someone is seeing their stuff? You know what I mean?
I know what you're asking. There isn't a way, to my knowledge, there isn't a
Right.
way to know that person's impressions. Okay. Obviously, only I can see my impressions, only you can see
Yeah.
your impressions. However, one thing that you can do if you want to guess, go into, so below their profile area, there's going to be a section called activity, and that'll be where you find things like posts, events, newsletters, articles they've written. Okay, it's the activity area. If you go into the posts that they've recently posted,
Mm-hmm.
you can see exactly how many people have engaged. You can also see how active they are on LinkedIn, because you'll see who are they talking to. You'll also see who's talking to them. Now, if someone, Simona, to your point, if I go on to someone's profile, okay, and I'll do this when I'm prospecting, okay, or when I'm
Yeah.
looking to build my connections with decision makers that I want to talk to, if I look in their activity area, and I do this, when I look in their activity area and I see the person hasn't posted online in 4 months, I'm not going to send them a connection request, because I know that they're not
Right.
active on
Right.
the platform. Now, to your point, they may not be this thought leader getting millions and millions, or thousands and thousands of engagements, but if I see that that person is on every day and they're commenting on people's posts and they're engaging and they're sharing valuable information, that might be someone that I would consider for my podcast. Yeah,
Right.
maybe they're not getting hundreds or thousands of engagements, but that person is active on the profile, on the platform, and I'm feeling good that this is going to be someone who's going to, share the episode with their connections, who's going to keep pushing it out there, because nobody wants a guest who's not going to help market the episode, right? I'm sure,
Exactly.
Simona, you as a podcaster and a publisher hate when you spend all this time to get a guest on and they do absolutely zilch as far as marketing the episode. Like, it's almost like, I did all the work necessary here. I was a talent. I'm not going to do any of the marketing. It's like, no,
Yeah.
man, help share this
Show up.
thing.
Show up. And that's the thing. That's like a big thing that really bothers me with like the podcasting space. And I was just having this conversation the other day because there's so many people who have such different opinions when it comes to, guests and should guests share and all this stuff. But it's like, if you look at a calendar year, if you're doing a weekly podcast, that's 52 slots. You know what I mean? It's 52 slots for someone to come in and share their expertise. And, yes, you want to be creating and producing a podcast that's valuable with or without the guest, right? But with that said, you want to make sure that whoever it is that you're bringing on, for me, it's important to have my guests share. You know what I mean? Like you and I are doing a 4-part series. If you didn't share any of them, we've just showcased all of your expertise over 4 parts with no sharing. I would be like, what? Like, I just feel like it's unkind. I think that's what it is. It just doesn't align with my values, you know?
And so, okay, so for 10-Minute Mentor for my podcast, it's a solo podcast. Okay, you know that.
Yes.
At one time when I was interviewing guests, and when I do things where like I have an interview series on LinkedIn, which you know about.
Yep.
That is one of the questions in the building up of that opportunity. So when I was interviewing guests for 10-Minute Mentor and with this LinkedIn series and the other videos that I've done, that question always comes up. I may not be blatant with the question, but I do ask, so will you be sharing it? And if it's someone that, it tells me like, no, I don't do that. That's not my job. Well, you know what? Maybe this relationship isn't going to happen because yes, I'm going to do what I need to do to share it. But if you can't take 5 minutes out of your day to share it, or, and reshare it a week later to get those people that didn't see it the first time.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. If it's below you to do a little bit of marketing, because that's probably not where I want to be. You know what I'm saying? So I'll just leave it.
I totally get it. I totally get what you're saying. I'm telling you, like I was having this conversation yesterday through like Instagram comments, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Like people will have their thoughts and they can think whatever they want about getting guests to share and stuff like that. For me, I think it's important. You know what I mean? Like for me on my podcast, if I'm going to give you a slot on the show, like I want not even just this show, like my Happiness Happens podcast too. Like, they're amazing stories and I want people to hear them. You know what I mean? And I want people to like learn about my podcast too. I mean, there's a lot of amazing podcasts out there, right? How do we find out about the new podcasts that are out there? Not even new, but like, how do we find out about podcasts that maybe somebody else will enjoy and they need to hear the conversation on? You know what I mean? Like, how are people supposed to know if they're not given the opportunity to even see it? It's kind of like, when you have a message to share and you choose to not share it, you're doing your audience or whoever it is, like you're doing them a disservice because you think that it's not important. You think that it's not going to make an impact, but like that could be the very thing that someone needs to hear that day. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing.
And yes, and double yes. And to go on top of that, Simona, it's almost like if the person is unwilling to, as you said, share their message, okay, maybe that person doesn't believe it themselves, or they're disingenuous to the point of, if they're not willing to share it with their audience, okay, take out the fact that it helps you, the podcaster, with promotion. Take that out of the equation, okay? If you're not willing to share that with your audience, how much do you care about them that you're not willing to share a good story, a good valuable tip, good valuable information that's going to help them? Again, take out the podcaster, take out the fact that it helps them with promotion. If you're not willing to share content that in theory is going to help your audience, why? You know what I'm saying?
Why? Exactly. I love this so much. And I could go on this tangent for like the rest of my life because I've talked about it on this podcast before so many times. I'm like, oh my God. It's one of those things that just like really grinds my gears. I don't know why. I would never be a guest on a podcast and like not even share it once. Like not even once. Like it just blows my mind. Like maybe you do so many interviews and like, the stuff isn't new for you, but even you sharing your message is just adding to your own personal brand, and it's adding to your own credibility, and it's adding to your own, trustworthiness within the space that you're talking about. Because it's like, oh, look, I'm on all of these podcasts. Like, look at all these interviews that I've done about this one particular topic. And people look at that and they're like, oh yeah, like this person knows what they're talking about. They're legit, So like, if anything, by you sharing, you're just building your personal brand to begin with. So I don't know why you wouldn't.
And one more quick, because I know we're probably going to wrap up in a moment. Here's another thing to consider, folks, is maybe you've said it 100 times, and maybe the people that have been with you on the journey have heard it those 100 times. But for the person you're going to meet tomorrow, they haven't heard that message yet. Okay.
Exactly.
And maybe that person you're going to meet tomorrow hasn't had the opportunity to dig into the archives of all the other times you've said that message. But when you say it the next time, that person that you met tomorrow, that you're meeting tomorrow, is going to hear it for the absolute very first time. So by you
Exactly.
not sharing that message, you're doing that person tomorrow that disservice. And
Oh,
thank you for attending my TED Talk.
like, right? Like, mic drop. We're done
Right.
here. Thank you so much. Like, I love that so much. Okay. Thank you so much, Rich, for joining me on part 2 of our 4-part series. In our next episode, we are talking about content that performs well. We're talking about all kinds of different content on LinkedIn. We are talking about videos versus texts versus posts, newsletters, blogs, hashtags, keywords. And then our final episode will be wrapping up all of the beautiful things that we're learning today and how to create that marketing strategy and the communication and engagement strategy that you were talking about in episode 1. So yeah, I'm excited. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you love what you heard, be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. That would be Apple or Spotify. 5 stars if you feel like we deserve 5 stars. I love it. Super grateful for you tuning into this episode. I hope you learned a lot, and I would love to know what you took away from this conversation with Rich and I. Be sure to connect with both of us, and you can find us using the links in the show notes. And don't forget to grab Rich's free LinkedIn marketing strategy quiz, which you can also find in the show notes below. Thanks again so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you on the next one.